Okay, we had an argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. The Mishnah says that a father is able to mekadosh his daughter when she's a nara, when she's between the age of 12 and 12 and a half, besides being a minor. So the question is, what about a nara, a girl between 12 and 12 and a half, could she accept kiddushin in her own right? In her own right, outside of the father. So the Chachomim, in regard to a get, the Mishnah says a get, and it's an argument between the Chachom and Rabbi Yehuda, whether the daughter, is she qualified to receive the get independent of the father. The Chachom say yes, Rabbi Yehuda says no. Nara. There's a nara. Okay? That according to Rabbi Yehuda, only the father can accept the get on behalf of the daughter. The Chacham say no. As the father is able to accept the get, the daughter can accept the get. We're speaking where the daughter is not the shliach of the father. If she's the shliach of the father, everybody agrees, because the daughter is the father, because she's an adult. An adult could be a shliach. Okay? So then there was an argument, Rabbi Yochanan Shlokish, what about in regard to Kedushin? As we find the machlokes in regard to Gittin, could the daughter be independent of the father? Rabbi Yochanan says that even though there's not in regard to Gittin, regard to Kedushin not. The daughter cannot accept marriage independent of the father. Reish Lakish says no. As they argue in regard to Gerushin, regarding receiving the get, they argue in regard to Kedushin. Same argument. So Rabbi Yochanan says, what's the rationale? The Gemara explains, what's the rationale, Rabbi Yochanan? Why did the Chachamim differentiate between get and Kedushin? So Gemara says, because get, when she receives the get, when she's a Nara, she's re-entering into the domain of the father. Right? After she's divorced, now she's fully reinstated in the domain of the father. So Rashi says, Nichale Labo. The father's agreeable to this. He wants this, because it's to his advantage. However, if she marries herself off, so she's leaving the domain of the father. As a result of that, it's something he's opposed to. It's mafkas atzmim rishus aviyah. She's extricating herself. Therefore, she cannot accept kedushin independent of the father. No, that's the argument. That's the argument. To who? Who is she? Yeah. To who? Could I ask you a question? Yeah, you own a piece of property, and you want to sell it to make money. Somebody else sells it without consulting with you. It's to your advantage. The question is, but unless you're authorized to transact the transaction, you're not authorized, because you have to be the owner to sell it. So good. So that's the question over here. No, that's the argument. Reish Lakish says even if the father is opposed to the marriage, if she's an adult between the age of 12 and 12 and a half, she can marry her off without consulting with the father. Rabbi Yochanan says no, she cannot. Even though in regard to get, she could accept the get as he accepts the get. In regard to marriage, she cannot. Disadvantage. Right. In regard to get, it's irrelevant, because it's not up to the father whether she should be divorced or not. It's up to the husband whether he wants to terminate the relationship.
All I'm saying is that it's his advantage or disadvantage, but it's his decision. That's the only point.
What's the decision based upon?
He wants her to get married.
No. In one situation, it's a loss. He has less control. Correct? In the other situation, he has more control. Again, so good. Where he has more control, more control is by get. No, but she's returning back into his domain. No, it's just reality ownership. Regarding, let's say, Haforos Nadorim, if he wants to nullify her vows, if she's married, it's a joint venture. It's in partnership. The husband together, they both have to agree to nullify it. Now that she's divorced before she's 12 and a half years old, she's fully reinstated in his domain. She makes a vow, he nullifies it independent of anybody else. No, firstly, he doesn't have to give her anything. After a girl is 6 years old, on halachic level, he does not have to support his daughter after 6 years old. Does not. There's a question if he takes her earnings. He gets her earnings. She works, he gets the earnings. If he takes her earnings, he has to feed her. Can't take the earnings and let her fend for herself, because there's no fending for herself. That's called masio deo. Her handiwork belongs to him, her earnings. After 6 years old, according to Gemara. Afterwards, it's considered tzedakah. So it's like charity. Gemara Ksubis.
She gets divorced, it comes back to him, he gets her earnings.
Wait a second. No. We're talking this kiddushin. Even before kiddushin, it's not the husband doesn't get the earnings after when she's married. Kiddushin. Nisuin, she's out totally. She never comes back. Once she is Nisuin, she never comes back to the father. Then she's fully independent. Right? Here we're talking about because there was only kiddushin. This is Harrison. This is. She's fully in the domain of the father. Correct, because she has no das. She's not competent. No, halachic das she does not have.
She doesn't have legal standing.
Legal, she's not legally competent.
She's not legally competent.
Correct. Into anything, even for acquisition. No, he can't transfer the law for the same reason.
So we are saying that the treatment which is between 12 and 12 and a half is no different for her.
No, she's fully competent. She's an adult. She is a full adult.
But we give her the same, we limit her rights the same way.
Why? Because her exercise of her rights is an infringement on the father's rights. That's the discussion over here.
Because the father's rights over her extend till she's 12 and a half.
Correct. She's in his domain until she's 12 and a half years old.
Even though she's got done.
So that's our discussion here. Her exercising her right as a competent person, because it's an infringement of the father's right, does the Torah allow her to do that? Doesn't. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Because that's where she cannot. Rish Lok says yes, she can. Just as regard to get, she could accept the get. Regard to Kedushin, she could accept the Kedushin. Independent of the father, regardless of the father, his right being diminished or compromised because of what she did.
So in other words, she has to seek his
Not approval, permission. Permission, correct.
But with get, it doesn't work that way.
According to the Chachomim, not Reb Yehuda. According to Reb Yehuda, it's no different. Get, Kedushin, the same thing. Correct? He says there's no two hands. Torah says there's only one party who's qualified to receive a get, the father. So unless the daughter, as a Nara, is the agent of the father,
But she is qualified to be an agent. There's no question about that.
she's an adult.
She's an adult.
Correct.
But she doesn't have the legal right. That also infringes on the father's right.
Get, no, because again,
According to Rabbi Yehuda.
according to Reb Yehuda, because who's considered married? She's not married. She's only an object. The father, because as the father married her initially, that he is the one to decide who she marries. So the consequence of the marriage, it's as if he was married. So it's just as when you give a get to a woman who's married, a full adult. She's the one who has to receive it. You can't give it to a third party unless the person's an agent. Identically, who's the one who's the equivalent of being married? The one who originally consented to the marriage, the father. So he's the one who has to receive the get. That's Rabbi Yehuda's rationale.
Away from kiddushin here and divorce, are there other restrictions on what she can and can't do, what she's not allowed? Does the father have control over everything? Does she have any right to make any decision?
She has a right to make every other decision. But the father has a right to affect those decisions. First, she makes a neder. The father wants to nullify the neder. That's his right, the Torah says.
She wants to do a transaction.
Well, transaction, she can do that transaction. She,
The father can't annul it.
no, cannot.
The husband of a katana cannot, is specific, cannot divorce her. The husband of a katana cannot divorce her woman, which we know that.
But we'll discuss that in a minute. It's only a shota. We'll discuss it. She's fully married or partially married.
She's a katana, fully married, but she has the katana. How could he divorce her then? Because he has no help, he has no
If she's old enough, we'll discuss this. Okay. You don't need das for divorce. Divorce, you don't need das. She just has to understand that when she receives that document, she doesn't come back to the husband. That's we differentiate between a shota, an unstable woman, and a minor. If a minor has intelligence, is intelligent enough, not legal intelligence, right? Understands that it means the marriage is over.
That doesn't play into kiddushin.
No, kiddushin is das. There you need legal. Therefore, you need legal. That's acquisition. Yeah, he could. The father's not a question. The question is, could the ketana accept her divorce if there's a father, right? Min erison. We're talking about ketana min erison.
How do you, so this 6-month period is like a halfway house. She's an adult.
But she's in the domain.
Not an adult.
No, she's an adult, but she's in the domain of the father.
So why would the Torah have done this when it's halfway house as opposed to cold turkey?
I mean, I'll give you an example. A person sells his daughter as a maidservant. What happens when she becomes a naro, becomes an adult? She's immediately emancipated. Even though she remains in his domain until she's 12 and a half years old. Originally, he was able to sell her because she was in his domain. But yet, even though she remains in his domain, it's not in regard, she's not a chattel any longer. As a chattel, it's until the age of 12. 12, she becomes a person. You cannot sell a person. Therefore, when she reaches adulthood, she's freed immediately. She's emancipated. But she stays in his domain regarding certain issues until she's 12 and a half, until she's fully mature. Full maturity is 12 and a half years old. But as an adult, 12 years old is an adult. Okay? So let's get back to this. So the Gemara says, Reb Yosef Bechanin explains to Reb Yochanan, why do the Chachamim differentiate between Gittin and Kiddushin? So he says, because Gittin is what? It's a reinstatement. Kiddushin, it's mafkas atzm rishus aviyah. She's extricating herself from the father's domain. So unless the father is agreeable to it, she can't do it, according to the Chachamim. So therefore, that's how it makes the differentiation. So the more asks the question, Vari Mamar, the Mafkas Atzm Rishus Aviyah, a woman is a Yavoma. It was Kiddushin, and she was married, let's say she was 11 years old. Okay? She's widowed when she's 12 years old. So she's widowed when she's an adult. No, Kiddushin, only Kiddushin. The father married off Kiddushin when she was 12 years old, when she was 11 and a half. Now she reaches her 12th birthday, she becomes widowed. But she's not 12 and a half. And now they're surviving brothers. So she's a Yavama. One of the surviving brothers now goes and marries her as a Nara, Kiddushin, rather than Yibum. Mamar is Kiddushin to a Yavama is called Mamar. Rather than doing an act of cohabitation, he just does the act of marriage. Because the halal, why? Question, he wanted to secure. There are multiple brothers, because whichever brother gives the Kiddushin, she's locked into him. The others can't do the Yibum any longer. The mitzvah is the oldest, is the preferable one. But if any one of the brothers preempt the other one, he becomes the husband. No, every brother could do Yibum. Anyone. But it's preferable. Mitzvah begodel asus. The eldest brother that's the mitzvah. It's based.
Another brother can come before the older brother gives a man
And preempts him. And gives a Kiddushin and speaks, she accepts it. He can't force the Kiddushin on her. We'll see. He gives her the Kiddushin and she accepts it.
She say, I want to wait for the other brother?
Yeah, she could say, I'm not giving. Well, we'll see. There's an argument. Simply, she could say, I don't accept the money. I'm not interested. Okay? What about he forces himself? Right? So, if he actually cohabits with her, she becomes his wife. Because it's even Bal Korcha. It's even Bal Korcha. Yibun's afil Bal Korcha. No. There's a question whether you need Eidim, like Kiddushin, but definitely she doesn't have to consent. She does not have to consent.
Mamar's gone, another brother doesn't
No, it's Eshes Ish. She's a married woman. Yeah. She's married to the first.
Doesn't have that effect. Mamar,
Mama does not allow the yibum to take place.
So if one of the brothers,
One of the brothers does mama, will get complicated. One brother does, the other brother cannot do yibum.
Tamar is as good as Yibum.
No, it's not the mitzvah of yibum. The mitzvah of yibum not.
They're not married yet.
They're married. They're married,
Mamar marries them.
but the mitzvah of yibum hasn't been fulfilled.
But Mamar needs consent. Because it's a priest.
Simply, it needs consent.
But Bia doesn't need consent.
Correct.
So if
Because one's yibum, one's kiddushin. The kiddushin of yavama is like kiddushin whenever you do kiddushin. You need consent. Both parties have to consent. Yibum does not need consent.
The people normally would be that the person does kiddushin with them.
No. Yibum.
No, I'm saying when the brother wants to take her to his mama, he just has to do the yibum.
That's it.
Doesn't have to do kiddushin.
Nothing.
So why? So the mama is just basically to take her away from the being father.
Whatever. Kasha v'maisa did Maimer. Mama means he did kiddushin. Finished. Okay? Let's not get complicated. Let's stick to the facts. Okay? Then you'll ask on the facts. So it says. So the Gemara asks, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he says even the Chachamim agree. Then when it comes to Kiddushin, because she's extricating herself from the father. Only the father can marry. She cannot marry herself independent of the father. We find Mamar de Mafkas Atzm Shesavio. She's extricating herself from her father's domain. Utanad Kitana Mina Erisin Ein Osim Bel Mamar. That if she's a minor and it's Mina Erisin, if any of the brothers do an act of Kedushin with her, it's meaningless. Elabidasavia, only if the father consents. Like the father marrying off a minor, right? A minor daughter. Hanara, but if she's a Nara, she's an adult, 12 years old, Beimidas Atzim, Beimidasavia. Either one. Whether it's her consent or the father's consent, either one. So she could marry herself independent of the father. This is according to the Chachomim. So that's the difficulty. Masha'enke b'kedushin. Leave it in the parentheses right now. We'll discuss. So we see clearly, even by kedushin, the chachamim are in agreement. Just as a kedushin, as Gershon, she could accept to get independent of the father. Here she's able to marry herself off independent of the father. Even though the Gemara ultimately is going to say we were able to differentiate. There's no comparison. If she's a single woman, where she's totally in the domain of the father, so that's the reason why her choosing to marry a person without a father's consent, she's extricating herself from the father. Here, factually, she's locked into who? She's already attached to the Yavam, right? The father over here cannot exercise his marriage rights. Because it's either Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, whichever one. Whichever surviving brother's here, one of them is going to become the husband, unless he chooses to what? To give chalitza. Any of them choose to give chalitza. But if
I'm sorry, but the father did the Zawar. He already married her to this guy who died. The job was done. So now she's still connected from that marriage. So really, he did his obligation of marriage.
But it's not the same. When you marry her off, she's called Mekudeshes. A Yavama is not called Mekudeshes. Pre-Mimer. There's a prohibition. She's not permitted to marry another man. She marries somebody else, it's not considered adultery. It's a love. There's a degree of connection. But factually, the level of connection of Kedushin is a greater connection to the husband than what we call Zika, than being a woman in waiting for Yibum. It's a more intense level of connection. So here we see she's able, although it's a degree of extrication, right? She's able to extricate herself, although she's less in the domain of the father as a result of this act. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, whenever she's extricating herself, Rabbi Yochanan says she has no right to act independent of the father. And here we see she can, right? That's the Gemara's question. So let's read. Gemara says, "Ketana bein min ersin ein osim mo maimer el midas avio, vad nara bein midas atz bein midas avio, el yitmar hochi yitmar." So Gemara says we have to restate the case. We have to restate the case. Eli Idmar Hochi Idmar. On Reb Yosef B'Chanina, my time to Reb Yochanan. Ali B'Draba. The kiddushin, the midato. Kiddushin, which she has to consent, right? Ovio v'lohik. Normally, the kiddushin you have to have consent. So therefore, whose domain is she in? She's in the domain of the father. So therefore, ovio v'lohik. Gershin de bal korcha, a divorce which is given even against her will. Bein hi bein ovio. That's the differentiation between. So the Gemara asks for a mama de midato, so mama also. It's only if she agrees. Uktani bein hi bein ovio. Now I just want to see Rashi over here. Rashi is kiddushin de midato. Kiddushin, what we need hadas. De beinon das makne. See this Rashi. You need the intent of the makne. If I sell an item, a piece of property, what am I doing? I'm transferring my rights. That's das makne, correct? So, and Rashi is saying, in regard to Kedushin, as you sell an item, you're transferring your ownership rights. When a woman marries herself off, she's transferring her independence, she's transferring it to the husband, right? That's right, the bina of das makne. But I mentioned the Ran in the Durham says that's not Kedushin. Kedushin, it's what? By her consenting, there's not an opposition. Which he says, a woman which is agreeable to be married, it's like a person goes and disowns a field. It's os atzmo kehefker. She says, I'm available. But who's the kona? Who's actually doing the marriage? It's the husband. She's not participating to any degree. She's not transferring anything. Not being opposed to marriage, that's why he's able to marry her. When I sell an item, my ownership rights in the object, I'm transferring to the purchaser. When a woman marries herself or is agreeable to marriage, she's not transferring anything. She's agreeable to be married. So it's not she's transferring anything. From Rashi it seems to be no. The bina das makne. She's transferring whatever independence she has, she's transferring that to the husband. So now the husband has that right over her. A woman has a right to marry her off to whoever she chooses to marry herself off to. That right, or whatever right she has, independence she has, she's giving those rights to the husband. Rashi seems to be saying not. See, that Duran says not this way.
How does that change what we're learning? How does that change how you view women's rights to...
No, the only question is what's dato? Is dato means she's not opposed? Or dato means, as Rashi says, it's das makne. You have the intent of the one who's doing the transferring. We had mentioned on Daf Gimel, we say Isha Niknis, Mishlosha Drochim, Shtar Kesef and Bia. So the question, what about, and the Gemara says, how do we learn out? We learn out from Ephron, right? From Ephron. That what? Just as over there, he purchases. So what about Kinya Chazoka? You acquire a piece of property with Chazoka, you take possession. You acquire a Evet Kanani, a Shifcha, right? With Chazoka. That's physical possession. So why can't you acquire a woman, right, with physical possession? Right? So the Rashba says marriage is not, a wife is not a chattel. You marry a woman, the Torah says you have rights. It's not, a woman's an object. It's not an object. So therefore, if it's not an object, as a result of that, it's not das makne. It's not like acquiring. When I transfer something, I'm transferring rights. She has rights also. Yeah, but that her rights are based on the husband's obligation to the wife. But it's again, there's nothing I have intrinsically in you. Neither have anything intrinsic in anybody else. I have to avail myself to you because you have rights. But when you own an object, intrinsically you have ownership rights in the object. A husband doesn't own a wife, and a wife doesn't own a husband. Because of the nature of the relationship, of the exclusivity, the responsibilities, one has to the other. To be continued.